Data collection methods. This lesson is about data collection methods, which is a new stage in the research process. We all know that the research process is cyclical in nature. It begins with the identification of a research problem. This is to be followed by the literature review. Once this is done, the researcher will make a research design. At the level of research design, a number of decisions are taken. Some are conceptual and some are technical. Once this is done, the researcher should collect the data. Here, this is the stage of data collection. Data collection is done via a number of standardized methods, which are related to one's methodology. This is to be followed by data analysis and interpretation, and finally the researcher will report his research in a research report. This can be a dissertation, an article, or something else. The data collection step is crucial to scientific inquiry because it offers researchers genuine evidence to answer their research questions. It leads them to have evidence. The answers allow researchers to corroborate, refute, or alter existing theories. Without real data, research lacks empirical evidence. It is data that make research empirical, and it is impossible to resolve the research problem. Data have a lot of forms, and they can be collected using a variety of instruments, or tools, or methods. They are also called the means of research. Researchers, therefore, should know about these tools and how they are designed and used. First of all, it is important to define data. Data is the plural of datum, and this refers to the information gathered in a research study. This means the real evidence or material found in the real world. Data are not to be found in the literature. They can't be found in the literature. They are found in the real world. For example, if one is interested in knowing about the views or the opinions of a population of teachers about the effectiveness of an educational system, here a thorough literature review will help the researcher to collect some theoretical background information on this system, its origins and how it is structured, etc. However, the researcher will not be able to find the opinions of the teachers in the previous literature. I mean here the teachers in the target population. The researcher may come across previous studies involving the views gathered from other populations about the same system, but the views of the target population will not be found in the literature. Therefore, it is essential that the researcher contacts these people or a representative sample of them to learn about their opinions through interviewing or responding to a questionnaire, for example. The answers to the questions are the research data. They are the source of new knowledge. Data can be spoken or written, or they can take other forms. This is related to the nature of the phenomenon being investigated. For example, in some studies, data take the form of numbers. In others, they take the form of texts, pictures, sounds, videos, images, etc. Let's talk now about data types. The first categorization that we can have is to talk about primary and secondary data. This categorization is related to the source of data. We categorize data according to their sources. Primary data are produced originally. They are produced by the researcher himself. Primary data can be collected by certain means, for example, measurement, using a test, observation, participating in the research context, interrogation, here asking questions, or participation. In your case, you will be collecting primary data. Collecting primary data is time-consuming, and sometimes this type of collection is impossible, such as the case of past phenomena. Secondary data, on the other hand, are taken from other studies. It means they are data which are the result of studies by other people before the researcher. Secondary data cover, for example, written materials such as annual reports made by some agencies or governments or any other bodies, production records which are related to manufacturers and industries, personal data, committee reports, and minutes of meetings, communications such as emails, letters, notes, publications, such as books, journals, newspapers, advertising, copy and government publications of all kinds. They cover also non-written materials such as television programs, radio programs, tape recordings, videotapes, films of all types, including documentary, live reporting, interviews, works of art, and historical artifacts. Also, they cover survey data, and this is a very important category of secondary data, like government census of population, of employment, household surveys, economic data, organizational surveys of markets, sales, economic forecasts, employee attitudes. The reliability of secondary data varies. They are not always reliable. Therefore, researchers have to assess them carefully by referring to their sources. The use of secondary data is a matter of discipline. Some disciplines use primary data more than secondary, and others use secondary data. Another categorization of data is into quantitative data and qualitative data. Quantitative data include numbers. They have a numerical form. For example, in some studies, a researcher administers a test and he collects scores. These scores are the data and they are quantitative in nature. Another case is when the researcher uses observation by resorting to the use of a checklist. Whenever a phenomenon is present, he observes that a phenomenon is present, he uses a check. So at the end of the observation, the data will take the form of check marks, and these can be, they are in fact numerical in nature. They are numerical because they can be quantified. Qualitative data, on the other hand, include non-numerical data. For example, notes. A researcher is observing, but he's not using check marks. He's writing something. He's writing notes. These are qualitative in nature. They take the form of words. Another case is the case of interview transcripts or texts which are to be analyzed, minutes of meetings, historical records, memos and recollections, documentary films and audio recordings. Qualitative data are worded data. For example, colors. Blue, white, green, these are words. Days of the week. Brands, animals. Now, if we move to quantitative data themselves, they can be discrete or continuous. Discrete data or discrete values are exact values or whole numbers. Like, for example, the number of pupils in a class. It can be 1 or 2. It can't be 1.5, for instance. It is a whole number. 1 is a whole number. 2 is a whole number. Shoe size, the same thing. Score rolled on a die. The frequency an event happens. if we take the continuous type of quantitative data, these are measured quantities that are rounded. It means they can have decimals. For instance, time or length, mass, capacity. Here we can have numbers like 2.6, 7.8, and so on. Here the question that arises is, why should we know about types of data? The answer is very simple. This is related to the next stage, which is data analysis. Different types of data require special methods of collection, and also they require special methods of analysis especially. Here, quantitative data can be treated using simple or complex statistics. We can use statistics with quantitative data, while with qualitative data, which generally appear in the form of words, the researcher cannot analyze them mathematically because they involve qualities and not quantities. At the end, we say that data collection is a very important stage, and the researcher should know how to collect data. That is to say, the researcher should know about data collection methods.